What's up, everybody on YouTube? This is ONH. Welcome to the next episode of What's It Worth, where I'm finally reviewing the video games of the Alien franchise, well, the ones I have so far, starting with Aliens Colonial Marines. Set after the events of the landmark Alien trilogy, you play as Corporal Christopher Winter, a Colonial Marine stationed on the USS Sephora, and your mission is to investigate the USS Sulaco orbiting LV-426, and you and your squad must survive countless xenomorphs, including newer breeds, while uncovering a conspiracy with the Weyland-Yutani Corporation. When I first saw the video on YouTube from the E3 convention for Colonial Marines, I was like, oh my god, this looks awesome! So then when GameStop started putting out the pre-orders for it, I was one of the first people that actually chipped in a little bit of money here and there for the game. And once I got it, I felt something punching me in the balls for getting this game. Ugh. This game was a victim of false advertisement. The final product was nothing compared to like all the demos and all of the what was advertised before its release. And I'm going to go over all the things that was absolutely wrong with that game. One of the things that's wrong with it is the graphics. Remember how in the demos and in the trailers the game was so stark realistic, detailed, polished, atmospheric, moody. The final product had none of that. Oh, it was like sharp in detail, but it wasn't realistic looking. Even the atmosphere sucked. It was like, it just looked like they just patched on if it was a PlayStation 2 game, or worst of all, if it was a PlayStation 1 game, this game would have been acceptable, but for a 360 game, which is what I got it for, they should be ashamed of themselves. The point of a video game, at that time, especially with Alien, is the graphics need to be so realistic and so rich in detail and atmosphere that it captivates you and it draws you into their world and make you feel like you're really in the shit. But with Colonial Marines and the final product, you're just you're not in the world, you're just looking at it, and it's just like a digital museum of you just visiting the familiar sites, but you don't feel like you're really there. It's just a half-ass, map that you just trail through. And you shoot some aliens left and right. Speaking of aliens, now let's rewind back. Remember the 2010 Aliens vs. Predator game? You remember how the xenomorphs, how they moved, how they crawled on the walls and the ceilings? It was very natural. It was really good, sophisticated animation. Well, that was how the xenomorphs were advertised in the E3 version. But when you get the final product, this is what you're stuck with. You talk about sheer laziness, and that's exactly what was wrong with this game. It was like they were working on this game during their breaks, and then I don't know what the hell they were doing during the actual game making process. But you talk about doing a half-ass job and then trying to cover it up with just a polished version that you think people want to see. Ugh. Another thing I couldn't stand was the aiming mechanics. It fucking sucked so bad. It's like they make it where your rifle is all over the place when you're firing at the enemy, and you're barely hitting the bad guy while the bad guy's spot on and almost invulnerable, while you're extremely vulnerable and you get killed quicker than the guy or the creature you're shooting at. That is not challenging. That is just pure laziness and frustrating. Absolutely irritating. Another element that really brought down this game was the animation of the characters in the cutscenes. The voice acting was really good, but that was not enough to save the terrible half-ass animated characters that they did. I mean, the graphics were good. They looked pretty realistic. Hicks and Bishop were spot on in detail. But when they're doing their performance in the cutscenes, what kills it is their faces are so blank. They do not express any emotion whatsoever. Gearbox thought that, if they blink their eyes, move their mouths, and just do a whole lot of, overacting with their bodies, that's going to make up for their half-assed work on facial expressions. Oh yeah, that's not necessary. And the voice acting doesn't coincide with the expression. Like, there's no expression coming from their faces. It kills the characters, it kills the game, it kills the whole purpose of you feeling something for the characters. So that was just... Oh yeah, one more downer. The storyline in this game was so half-assed written. It sucked so bad. Because they just threw in so many ideas, and a lot of them contradicted what was said in the first 3 films. And they try to take concepts that make no sense and try to make them make sense. Make sense? Now, this game had so many poor reviews from the fans, from gamers. I still remember the first one I saw from Angry Joe Reviews. Oh my god. His opener to that video was so funny, and I remember it like it was yesterday. And it was the perfect way to start it off when he goes, "They fucked it up! You're like my favorite dude!" I mean, this game got so much backlash. Here's something that a lot of you probably didn't even know. I didn't know it until the day I looked up reference pictures for this video. When I pulled up this picture, it had a story caption on the bottom that made me go, oh shit. And here it is. Apparently, Gearbox Software and Sega were sued for false advertisement for Colonial Marines, and the worst part is they knew that the final product was nothing like what they advertised. And in the article, it says that Gearbox tried to get out of the lawsuit and pin all the blame on Sega. And you know what? That's typical of most industries. They screw up on something, and then when they really get in trouble, people like this jackass try weaseling their way out and pin the blame on somebody else. It's also said in the article that Sega agreed to a settlement of paying $1.25 million for the Colonial Marines lawsuit. Which I learned about this from video games. I'm not sure if at the time, you could correct me on the bottom if I'm wrong, but I don't think there was a playable demo for Colonial Marines at that time. And I learned that if there's no playable demo and they just show you videos, that's not a good sign. That's something you need to stay away from, because what if what they're advertising is not what you're going to get? Now, Colonial Marines does have a couple perks to it. One of them is a xenomorph known as the Raven. He is one of the most terrifying creatures ever in this game. I mean, he was so scary. He was fast. He could bust through any fortress. He is bulletproof. And when you first encounter him, your weapons are all gone, and you have to try and get away from him without him ever getting his clutches on you. And I'll tell you, that was a scary experience, especially the part where you're almost out of the hive, you're out of the sewers, You open the door, he's right behind you. You have to close the door behind you, unweld the door in front of you while he's prying the door behind you to get to you. Then you got to close the door you just unwelded to run to the next door while he's pulling that door open. And I think you have to unweld that one, or you could just open it. I forgot which. And then you have to close that door behind you to run to the elevator while he's prying that door behind you. And I was like, when I played that part, my heart was literally pounding out of my chest. I was like, and of course, Gearbox had to fuck it up with the fight scene when you're on the power loader. When you finish him off, you talk about half-ass animation, half-ass programming, because this is what finishing him off looks like. Bullshit, isn't it? Another perk to the game is one of the concepts they mention, which I think any later Alien movie should keep it, because it was a damn good idea. I thought it was a good idea. It was when Bella has the xenomorph chest burster. It's about to burst out of her, and O'Neill and Winter are trying to have it removed, and the scientist says you can't, not without killing the host. So the scientist explains the xenomorph's life cycle, where when the embryo is implanted inside you, it starts extracting fluids and nutrients from the host to form a placenta, but it's not like a human's. It weeds itself throughout all the major organs in your body, in the chest cavity. So even if you successfully remove the xenomorph embryo, the placenta acts like a cancer, which causes all your organs to shut down one by one until you die. I went, you know what? They need to keep that in the movies, because that was a good idea, because it shows that no matter what you do, once a facehugger latches onto you, you are screwed. There is absolutely nothing you can do. It just signed your toe tag, and it's like, I mean, it was perfect. I mean, that was the only good idea that the whole game had. Otherwise, what a flop. Another perk to this game that I loved it, but it wasn't enough to save the game, was the fact you get to hear Michael Biehn reprising his role as Hicks and Lance Henriksen coming back as Bishop. Okay, so I've just reviewed Aliens Colonial Marines, and where do we rank it? Oh, almost low price. I'd hate to give it that. I mean, it's a playable game, but if it wasn't for Sega Gearbox falsely advertising this game, I mean, it wouldn't have been such a letdown. Okay, so I'm going to be moving on to Alien Isolation next. I'm ONH. Have a nice day.